Honorable sisters, brothers, and friends, yours truly is forced to issue this report. J. Edgar Hoover was an immoral ass. Immorality in all forms was standard procedures. Look at Homo Hoover and Homo Hooverus per Preacher Doc's True Facts. Read Official and Confidential, The Secret Life of J. Edgar Hoover by William Summers. If you Google exposés, the videos about J. Edgar Hoover, and you obtain hundreds that are listed, some by even high officials within that FBI, Federal Bureau of Insanity, and other officials. Last but not least, research several videos by Doc 1, PhD 1, CO. Preacher Doc, expose editor. What is of world importance? The FBI, Federal Bureau of Insanity, is from 1914 to today. It's 100 years. Their MO, modus operandi, is to violate every God, human, Constitution, Bill of Rights, civil rights, etc., and to store them in where they control, and it was under the directly, they had his own personal file. It was that psychotic, whimsical J. Edgar Hoover, thus any person or nation. The above videos establish: 1. Hoover was a bend-over for politicians, especially in covering up the Teapot Dome scandal. That was like a Watergate. 2. Hoover infiltrated the vets camps to obtain the info needed for MacArthur to lead a horseback destruction of the vets camps. The vets and families were broke, unemployed, hungry, and trying to get their World War II bonus checks. Some vets were killed and several injured. Hoover was then politically given secret power as the director of the FBI. 3. Hoover, a pass for white, murdered at least one relative who was speaking of that true fact. See the video of Millie McGhee, capital MC, capital G-H-E-E, who absolutely proves that true fact. 4. A representative with speech in hand arrives in Washington by train. However, he does not get off the train. They find him dead with a copy of what he was going to give to expose Hoover and have murderous Hoover replaced. 5. Melvin Purvis, especially those in the Federal Bureau of Insanity and other bureaus and so forth, covering up. This one they cannot deny. Melvin Purvis was a hero, thus, especially Dillinger, and was being naturally asked by those who didn't like the questionable, for the polite Hoover, if, replace him. And he made the mistake of saying, well, yeah, if you want me to be, I will be the director. Hoover got him out of the FBI, and he was found dead. Hoover said that he shot himself. Mrs. Purvis called him a liar. She said that Mr. Purvis would not abandon the children and her. 6. Joseph Doc Castellano, who proved the validity of a hydrogen bomb. a secret meeting of science and intelligence at the University of Rochester Advanced Physics Department, the Cyclotron building, suggested, and it was agreed upon, to have a super Manhattan project at Los Alamos. Therefore, yours truly was at the absolute top, while anonymous unknown. When I realized that Hoover was a homo, let's say queer in them days, you know, I said, well, we can't have a queer in that position. We got to replace him. Now, once Hoover found out there was somebody, person or nation, or he would go vicious. Now, he finally allowed me to confer with Einstein, because I had studied Einstein forward and backward for 2 years and had put forward some modernization of his opinions. And Einstein was of the opinion you had to think irrationally in order to get the correct answer of how our universe functions. And if you think about it, I'm of the opinion a rational man with 2 feet on the ground thinks rationally to get what really will be valid expressions, mathematical physics, of our complex universe. Well, he finally allowed, after a year, for the conference to take place, because he didn't like the idea that I was batting 1,000, as I would say it. That is, I would be correct, and Hoover had to be number 1. And it was obvious that he just had the power. Einstein agreed on my futuristic science presentations. Then also agreed to begin a project to obtain a valid unified field theory. Hoover did not like Einstein. He knocked him off the night before that we were to begin the project. A true fact. 7. Immoral and criminally insane J. Edgar Hoover, now a psychotic murdering tyrant, experimented to death unsuspecting Americans. A true fact. I have proof. 8. In demanding Hoover be investigated for violations of God, human, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, civil rights, etc., Joseph Doc Castellano, who barely survived deadly accidents, was able to get a distinguished attorney in Washington, D.C. to legally begin replacing psychotic murders, J. Edgar Hoover. And that attorney would swear at him even worse than I would. He says, yeah, well, I know about that, Hoover, and maybe a couple things you don't even know about him. This is on a Monday. He said, I'll get everything done on my desk. You see, you come in Friday and we'll start the legal forms with your true facts and what I have to legally go after to replace that Hoover. That was on a Monday. Now, I know that Hoover, keep in mind, he knocked off Einstein the night before. Hoover is moving ever faster, more vicious, plus anybody that tries to fire or replace him. Now, I called on a Wednesday to make sure he was alive and keep his promise that he, for Friday, sounded like him but was not him. It was his brother. And his brother said, well, he dropped dead last night. How could it be? I thought the Monday was in great health and in spirits and making plans for Friday. He said, I talked to him yesterday, but on the way going to my town last night, they called me and said he suddenly dropped dead. And they told me to rush back because they're going to marry him Friday. Do you understand how fiendish this Hoover is? When I go into the office Friday, he wouldn't be there. Where is he? They're burying him. Do you understand? No. Right. I think that was 8. 9, Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Now he's the Attorney General now. Was made aware of my true facts by me in a getting more and more forceful, louder voice. And of course he conferred with Pres Kennedy, the only one who could fire Hoover. Bobby could, but he controlled that Justice Department. They were scared of him, wouldn't they? Because I challenged Hoover to a lie detector test on a supervisor's desk, and he had a big chickened out, and so you said, hey, you know, he's got more power than the president, as you were saying. Well, what did Homo Hoover do? He got President Kennedy knocked off, and his buddy LBJ, who lived around the corner, and go over and visit him, stay there overnight. And then they had expanded where they could then go more global policy of war and the big money they were making from war. A true fact. 10. Reverend Martin Luther King, not a politician, this is a reverend, began to accumulate true facts about psychotic murdering Homo Hoover and expose Hoover as a passed for white, especially because he viciously oppressed blacks and other minorities. The day I was sending him my true facts, Reverend Martin Luther King was knocked off. Another unbelievable, unprovable coincidence. Now I think I'm at 12. Senator, soon-to-be President Robert Kennedy, and this is the story, I don't have to look at any notes. Scholarly, Senator McCarthy was leading, and now they were saying, challenging him to a debate because they figured scholarly McCarthy would win, and that then he would become president. Well, nobody would say or do anything, so I stood up at his brother-in-law Steve Smith's brain trust sessions at the Ambassador Hotel, and I explained that a certain gentleman put forward the renaissance of having the debates at a presidential level, and then they all understood. Now, being his brother, he must debate. And if he debates in a way where he says, I guarantee you I will continue Jack's policies, and you know that when I get to Washington, I will keep my promises, I think they'll say, you know, that's what we have to vote for. And I think he'll win, so he has to debate. They agree, he debated, he won, all he's got to do is stay alive. Now, my opinion from what I see, Hoover might knock him off that night in Los Angeles. So I risked my life, and I talked to Bobby face to face, not once, twice. The first time he wouldn't even smile. Just looked down in his nose at me. And I says, well, they're playing whatever card they can. So I waited. And then to the group there, and I think Sandy Van Oker was there, and there was one girl there, and she stood next to me. And then after a while, we were talking around, she put her head on my shoulder. And I said, well, now that's a promise that when he wins this election, you're going to have at least one dance with me. And she smiled and then really put her head on her shoulder. She says, yeah, okay. Yeah. Now, Bobby just smiled a little bit. So I said, now I walk up to him, and I tried, like talking to him like a father. And I says, you know, to understand, do it my way. They got to get me before they can get you. To my surprise, he doesn't say a word again, and he turns and walks into the presidential suite. Holy, what the heck's going on? They've got to him. I'm standing out there alone. All who has to do is grab me. Nobody ever see or hear me again. Here comes F. Kennedy. Now, anybody could say, no, he's saying stories and that's his word. And now he says, well, there's the voice stress analyzer, which I did some work on to prove my true facts. You put this on the voice stress analyzer, prove I'm saying the truth. You're going to say that Ethel Kennedy is a liar, that I didn't confer with her that evening? You understand? Now, Ethel Kennedy had 10 children and was pregnant. When Bobby walked towards giving the victory speech, I told him like a third time, stick to the itinerary. Come back the same way. We're at the presidential suite. That's what we're supposed to celebrate. He kind of smiled. They got him to go in the opposite direction of where he's supposed to do, like I told him, really 3 times. And it's what's called a Judas goat. He leads them, and then he got knocked off. Why 2 guns and all the shots is because Hoover figured that Bobby would let me walk behind him, and he would get us both at the same time. And I told him, fire Hoover now. But they know they were going to wait until Jack was reelected, and then they were going to replace him. If he didn't want to be retired, they would then fire him. So that's the true facts. The reason I'm emphasizing my true facts is because the criminally insane, psychotic, murderous, homo hooverists are bragging openly that they are the authoritative power over me and anybody in the U.S. and anybody just about anywhere. They're the worldwide authoritative power. Even though, if I recall, the greatest, there's all these protests, but the greatest protest by numbers was against the U.S., not to go against the UN and to invade Iraq, if I recall correctly. And so more and more countries are realizing, hey, if they have the power, they use it. If they don't have the power, they kiss ass, suck up, and try to get their way. Now, where the U.S. gets involved, yeah, if you'll notice, those countries go from bad to worse. Iraq, Afghanistan, Egypt, Libya, Ukraine, etc. I think I'm at 13. No nation can continue being the authoritative power that has degenerated down to a psychotic, murderous, homo-heuristic hypocrisy. Those are the true facts. Now, I intend 24/7 to not be forced into this continuous, criminally insane, homo-heuristic hypocrisy. With a smile and a song. Start off each day with a song. And they say, well, we get the best out of him, but look, what we force him to do. No, I did all my great work on my own, in a good mood, in a good way, thinking positively, and coming up with solid, valid, rational, valid solutions. Isn't that correct? It's the criminally insane over. It's a sheer drop in morals, intelligence, honesty, etc. So I wouldn't know the lyrics, but I like a tune. Sure, in honor of somebody, you put forth your best effort in their honor. But you would do that anyway. You don't have to have your brother experimented to death, or your relative, or a girl you know die way before her time and you have to suspect. and her name was Caterina. And there is this Catari, Corn Grotto. I have to look up the words really to be sure. So the words I don't like, I like the old opera of the strength and death and all that for drama of the opera and of a song. So I don't know the words, and if I knew the words, I probably wouldn't even do the song because they're negative. But in her honor, let's see if I can remember the tune. It's got a great tune, especially if they play it with a guitar. For you, Catari.